Welcome to Believe. Today we are looking at Satan's Coup Detat. I hope I'm pronouncing that very well. A coup d'etat is a sudden, violent, and unlawful seizure of power from a government. It is a blow of state. It is done illegally, okay? The people involved in coups do not follow the rightful procedure or the set procedure for the transfer of power. The individuals in the forefront appoint themselves, or even if they are in a group and a group has appointed them, the people in that group are equally illegal because none of them occupy the rightful position to make such appointments. So as a result, everything about a coup is illegal. It's done illegally. The team that carries it out operates in obscurity, in hiding, in secrecy, because they know that it is not a legal procedure. The operations and functions of it are always very secretive. Okay? They are very secretive. We always see such things happening in nations, in kingdoms, anywhere where power is involved. But this is also something that happened to the human race as a whole. It did not just happen to an individual. It did not happen to one religious group. No, it happened to an entire human race. And I'm going to show you how it happened. Okay? It happened to you. You that is watching. You are being affected by such an operation. And I'm going to show you how it came to be. Before we get there, let me be very clear. God does not care about your religion. He doesn't care about religion. Okay? He does not care about it at all because it has nothing to do with him. Religion is something that man needs. It's a creation of man to cope with where he finds himself, to reach a dimension that he should be in. Okay? So man uses religion as a coping mechanism, but that coping mechanism does nothing in terms of God's purpose and intent for man. So it doesn't matter which religion you find yourself in, that religion can cushion you, it can give you promises, it can make you comfortable for now, but you are still overthrown from your place of authority and rule. You will still not be able to fulfill what you are supposed to fulfill as a human race and as an individual human being. So you may find yourself in Hinduism, you may find yourself that you are a Buddhist, you are a New Age, someone who is practicing the New Age. You could be a witch, you could be a wizard, you could be practicing voodoo, astrology, palm reading, you could be a Christian, you could be a Muslim, a Catholic, a Protestant, Jehovah's Witness, you could be Methodist. It does not matter which religion or which body you belong to. As long as you are part of what is called the human race, something happened that affected you, and it is of your interest to know. You as a human being are facing the results and the repercussions of the coup d'etat that was carried out against the human race. Let's go quickly, because of time, to look at what happened exactly. Let's begin with the concept of God. God is defined differently and with different names across ethnic, cultural, and religious settings. But the whole of the human race will or is aware of a supreme being. The whole of the human race is aware of a supreme being that is pure and whose origin is known only to him. He is above all things. He is greater than all things. He is God. This supreme being is God Almighty. And God by nature, God rules, God has dominion, and God creates. God rules, God exercises dominion, and God creates. And this God cares about his kingdom, his rule, his dominion. Now, when human beings are introduced, or the human race is introduced into the picture where this God, this being, this supreme being is concerned, his interest and his endeavor is to make man a ruler just like he is. Because in the Christian Bible, God says, let's create man like us, who is like us. And the image of God has nothing to do with the physical appearance of man, but has everything to do with the purpose for which he created him. Since man is in a realm that is new, that God created him in, God was setting him up over the works of his hand, that he may have dominion, that he may rule, that he may govern, that man may be to his realm what God is in the spirit realm. Secondly, we see another being that is evil and is introduced as the devil. He's known as Shaitan. In the Chinese, there is the yin and the yang, the good and evil, and they talk about the balancing of power. But literally, the evil is representing this evil being that is out to destroy, that is out to contend against what God is doing. So when this being comes into the picture, he comes with one intent: to destroy man, to destroy what God wanted to do with man, and destroy the image of God in man. So how did the devil manage to do or to carry out the coup d'etat against man, against the human race? Because God has created them to rule, to have dominion, and to govern the works of his hands. Now, we know that God created man as pure. Man had one will, that is, whatever God wanted to do, that's exactly what man would do. So man was pure. Man only did what he had, only one will. He had only one way. He had only one desire. Everything in man was in tune with God. And man was created in such a way that he would have dependency on the God that created him. Because remember, I have taught that man was a living soul and not a spirit. So as a soul, he is a little bit lower than a spirit, but he was created to live with the dependency upon the spirit. But which spirit? God. So man was never intended to operate on his own. He was created with a dependency on God. So every time man would approach God and go and fellowship with God, or God would come to man and they would have fellowship, then from that fellowship, man would have his being. Now he could go and execute things, execute his dominion, his rule, his governance in the same way that God would have done it, or in the same way according to the perfect will of God. So what did Satan do that disorganized everything? Number one, the devil went for Adam's will, or for man's will. Since man knew only God's will, Satan came into the picture and began to introduce the man to his own will. Man began to realize or began to think different from what God was thinking. Remember, when the devil is dealing with man, he is dealing with his nature directly, because he is appearing in the realm which man is. So everything he is introducing to him is not just an outward action, it's happening to the real creature itself. It's happening to man himself. So when he tampers with the will of man, it is a damage in Adam that cannot be repaired. So man begins to have a will that is contrary to God's will. Now remember, a soul is made up of the will, the emotions, and the thoughts, the thinking, the intellect. So his intellect, the devil divided man's intellect, divided man's emotions, divided man's will. So whatever man is going to do, he's going to do with a divided will, a divided intellect, and divided emotions. He will no longer be single and pure the way he was created. Number two, what the enemy did was to awaken man to self-realization. When Adam was created, all he was aware of was God himself, was God's glory, God's presence. He was not aware of self. He did not have self. We were not created with self. We were not aware or conscious of it. We were conscious of this being that was before us, that was God, his will and his ways. But now Satan comes into the picture and awakens the self-consciousness in man. So man begins to think that he can do things all on his own without God. Because what the enemy said to Eve was that he knows that if you shall eat of this fruit, then you'll become as gods. That means you are not going to need anybody. You can do it all on your own. Okay? So that tactic was to incapacitate man with regards to his divine function, which is number 3, what he did, to incapacitate him with regards to his divine function. That means God has created man to rule and reign, but with dependency upon him. But now if Satan cuts off that dependency that man has on the Creator, that means man is now going to run on his own, without leadership, without guidance, without the knowledge, because the plan of the creation was not man's plan. Therefore, man cannot manage a plan that does not belong to him. That is God's plan. So man needed God to execute what God wants for what he has created. Now man is separated from God and is all on his own. The devil's intent, number 4, was to totally destroy man. Totally destroy man. How? Once he has removed him, once he has divided his will, his soul is now divided. That is his will, his emotions, and his intellect. Okay? Now he thinks he can do things on his own. He is now also no longer able to govern the way he is supposed to. What does that present before God, the one who created it? It means the one who created man. It means that man has now become useless before God. God can no longer use him as a governor to govern the works of his hands. So man is losing his ability to govern and to execute his divine mission. Okay? Now, the last thing I will mention, which is number 5. What the enemy, now how the coup happened. Through all these things that I've explained, Satan was creating an open door in man's nature through which he can always enter to rule and to govern. Okay? To rule and to govern. But which means would he use it? Remember when I was teaching in the quest of salvation, I said that when God created everything, there is only one creature upon which he pronounced the blessing, upon which he conferred authority. Because the blessing is literally that empowerment, that release from God to make you succeed and prosper, to position you and to set you on course. So that was only pronounced upon man, not upon cows, not upon birds, not upon trees, not upon anything else. That pronouncement was pronounced upon man. Now, when man has been corrupt with all these things that Satan has already done to him, man is divided in his will. He cannot make a decision. So he needs a spirit to give him a decision. Okay? So he can decide. He needs to be convinced so he can decide. 2, man thinks that he is self-sufficient. But quickly, man will realize that, no, I'm not self-sufficient. I need help. And that help is going to come from the spirit realm. But which spirit? Number 3, man is not able anymore to execute what God has assigned him. And man knows now he cannot control nature. Now he cannot control anything. So he needs power. He needs that ability. But now he doesn't have it. And lastly now, this door that I'm talking, the enemy weaves his way into man through this weakness that he has created in man, so that he can get a hold of man's blessing, so that he can get hold of the blessing in man. He can use the power in man. If you bless a man, you are blessing everything under him. But if you come into the man and you introduce a curse, then everything under him is cursed, and you begin to see the curse reigning. So when the devil did this to Adam, he was opening man up so that he could squeeze in, then use the position that man has been given to bring out everything, every distraction that he has in plan for man. Knowing that man is a weaker vessel, he is weaker, he is lower than angels, and the devil is a fallen angel, he knew that he will have the upper hand. So now man who has the blessing comes under, and Satan comes above him. He becomes the guiding spirit. He becomes the director now. He's telling man, go left, go right. Man doesn't know how to make a decision. The devil is there to tell you, now you go this way. Man doesn't know how to feel. He will give you the emotions. You don't know how to decide. He's gonna make you decide. He's gonna tempt you until you decide. And now, because you don't have God to depend on, you depend on him. So the devil becomes all in all. So if he is running the sheep belongs to him. If he is running the sheep belongs to him. He has successfully disconnected man from the Creator. He has successfully tore and destroyed man in his will, in his intellect, in his emotions, in his capacity to execute his divine assignment. Okay? And in his purity. He is not pure anymore. He is now corrupt. Now, where is the danger? I want to ask you, if the gadget that you are using right now, whether it is a phone or a laptop, if it stops functioning, it stops working, you try everything to make it work and it stops working, what do you do with it? You will throw it away. You will get rid of it. It will end up in some fire somewhere. So that becomes the total destruction of man. The enemy's intent, the devil's intent, is to drive the human race to total destruction, to a point where God has no other option but to just destroy you, to a point where God can do nothing else with man except destroy you. And that is the point where the enemy, the devil, has brought all humankind. At one point, we have to awaken to realize that we are not ourselves anymore. A coup was carried against us through our forefathers, the first human beings that were created, Adam and Eve. And through Adam and Eve, our will, our souls, our confidence, our will, our capacity to carry out our divine assignments, our dependency on God, it was all destroyed.